All right, folks, we're back with myself, New Socialist Era, talking today with philosophical zombie hunter, your minarchist extraordinaire. He's bringing it to us. We're bringing it as well, and we're going to have a wonderful little discussion about a recent debate I had, just a little bit, I guess, and then maybe some other topics as well. So, hey, zombie hunter, how you doing?
Hey man, I'm doing well. How are you?
Always doing good, always doing good, even when I'm doing bad, right? Yeah, keep that chin up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, if you want to maybe you want to plug some of your socials, or if you want to, or any particular
Uh,
projects.
yeah, sure. So I'm Philosophical Zombie Hunter on YouTube. Just search the name. I also am on Twitter, and I also publish articles on Substack. So philosophicalzombiehunter.substack.com. That's pretty much it.
All right, sounds good. All right, righty. Yeah, last time we tried to do this, bit of a technical mess up on my part. By a bit, I mean a lot. Um, yeah, just stupid OBS wasn't recording like it should be. It was recording my voice, but not Zombie Hunters. And it was only towards the end of the fucking thing that I was like, oh god, don't tell me. And sure enough, it wasn't working. So now, this time it is working. It is recording. Hopefully, our voices are, sounding volume wise about the same. So, um, yeah, but yeah, I'm still kicking myself over that. But yeah, did you want to start off with anything in particular, or?
Um, yeah, I mean, I'd like to start. So I'm a bit curious about the system that you want to promote. So I guess I'll bring in something from the last time. You said you really like Germany's uh the way the economy is set up, the fact that they mandate 50% worker representatives on boards of the or 30 to 50 if I'm roughly on board of directors. Um that's all I recall. So I just wanted to understand this new socialist era. What does it mean in terms of the economy? What can I expect?
It's just building upon what we already have pretty much in the United States. A strong constitutional based electoral republic system with Bill of Rights, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
It just takes it to potentially that next level. And what Germany's doing is, again, is called with code. They call it co-determination, or in German it's a Mitbestimmungsgesetz, something like that. Um, and it's only for larger companies, and
Hmm.
it's to help to reduce the likelihood of these larger companies from gaining too much economic power and leverage against people who are just trying to find jobs, find work. And it's a great way to have workers have their voice, at least through representatives on the board of directors. And because of that, those companies are overall a bit more productive. They're a bit more stable in economic downturns than traditional private firms. And for me, it seemed to be, and the profitability is about the same. So for me, it seems like it's a good step forward, introducing the idea of workplace democracy, at least somewhat, into, I
Oh,
guess, the,
sorry,
the, the,
sorry.
the public
I'm
awareness. Yes?
confused then. I'm
Yep.
confused. Sorry. So we don't want, or you don't only want um the mandated the mandated law in Germany that board members have to be 50% worker representatives. You want worker-owned businesses?
No. Co-determination means the uh, the business is still privately owned, but the workers
Hmm.
have representatives put on the board of directors to
Okay,
for the
so it's the
workers
same
have.
thing.
Yeah. So same as in Germany.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. I don't know why people confuse. I don't not you, but other people confuse the term co-determination with worker-owned cooperative. They're not the same thing. I mean, they're kind of related, but they're not really the same thing. So it see that as just a natural step forward, a possible natural step forward. Well, I shouldn't say natural, because anything can be natural, but just a possible step forward, and how we
Hmm.
can go in the direction to basically deconcentrate the amount of power that these uh, economic, I guess, captains of industry tend to have over the workers. The workers tend to get run over roughshod. They get cast aside at the first, first sign of trouble, and I'd say it's a great way to. And it just happens to actually seem to be working out pretty well wherever it seems to be implemented.
Sorry,
Um,
can I
yeah,
just pause you for a second? Um, with regards to this power and running roughshod, I'm not entirely clear what you mean, and to be completely honest, it sounds a bit conspiracy theory like. So, would you like to defend that position and what it is you mean? I don't wanna misconstrue what you're saying.
yeah. I was speaking a little off the cuff, but when you have these businesses get to a certain size, they suffer from the ivory tower effect, where the upper management at the company tends to see workers as pawns rather than actual like people, more or less. I mean, they still see them as people, but they're more like used as a way to maximize profit as much as possible, especially since they're further removed. That's usually tends to what's to happen. As far as it being a conspiracy, I mean, it depends. I mean, maybe it's a conspiracy that's real or not. But for me, when power concentrates in the hands of a relative few like that, they tend to sort of especially when they get farther away from the rank and file because they're so far at the top, relatively speaking, they no longer have to really care. To me, that's concerning because people they want to work. Most people, believe it or not, want to work and want to have a job, and they want to
Okay,
make sure that So it's just a way of balancing out that sort of like power disparity of the workplace for larger companies. Now,
I
if
see.
it's
So
okay, but
it's specifically to contained in the workplace. So someone who is in upper management and it's a particularly large company, then someone who's just started, there's a power imbalance from what you're saying, and you'd like to shrink that distance or shrink that power they have over people.
well, like make it to where it's not as disparaging. I mean, if you want me to look for the exact verb, perfect,
No,
exact
it's
per.
fine. It's fine. I just want to understand.
Oh yeah.
So there's two points I'd like to take from that. So firstly, profits are good, right? In this kind of economy, that there's still a market, there's still profits. So I assume from your point of view, profits are a positive thing. I mean,
Well, they can.
all things being equal, with the exclusion of like minor things or like 1% does something wrong, but overall, it is a positive thing. Yes.
It seems to be. It seems to be something that works. Um, but like some people on the actual far left, they want to try to just totally get rid of the system. I'm not trying to do that because I think that would be imprudent.
That's fine.
So but yeah, overall, yeah, it seems to be a pretty positive goal towards working towards. I mean,
Okay.
who can assuming I'm telling the truth, who could say that increased productivity, increased stability, especially in downturns? Who said that those are things to scoff at? I'm not saying you are, but it's one of those things where it's kind of a really hard case to, or really hard to like sort of thumb your nose at, unless you're really hardcore, like any government intervention whatsoever. Um, but it's like, but if somebody wants to be that way, fine. But all I can do is bring the case, say, hey, that's what it is.
Okay.
But any other questions?
And yeah, and I got basically two points from your answer. One is, would you say profit maximization is a negative thing? And the other question is, well, actually, start with that, and I'll ask the other one later.
Well, it depends how that profit is maximized. If it's maximized off the ignoring the concerns of the workers and laying people off at the drop of a hat just to do it and potentially ruin lives just for the sake of maximizing profit, I could see that as less than desirable. But then again, that's a relative sort of concept. But if someone says they want to have this attitude like, oh, well, it doesn't matter, that's just business, then that's the attitude they're going to have. So it all depends on what is actually like is being done in that particular. It can be good, sure. Can it be bad, sure. But good and bad are relative, and I'm trying not to you know use things. What should I say? Things use the words that are, I guess, a bit too ambiguous like that, based on a person's possible, you know,
Okay.
and more
Would
frame.
you?
Yeah.
Can I just ask? Would you? I sometimes find that people don't understand where profits come from, and they draw like some kind of different conclusion from it. So specifically, the idea with profits, or let me say it a different way. People confuse profit maximization with profit prioritization. So technically, where we get profits are from customers, or in another way, the profits are sitting in the pockets of customers, and the customers have to give you the profit willingly, as in you have to offer them something that they find of value, more of value than the money that they're holding in their pockets. And then
Well,
they trade that profit. They give you that money, and then you have that profit from that. So profit maximization in this context would be you offer them the the value that they want, and you eliminate any waste that's not relevant to the thing that they want. That's basically it. So I think with regards to what you're saying the profits will come in anyway from the outside world no matter what you do. And in order to save money, we just want to fire workers, or we want to, I don't know, buy a machine, then we need less workers. I mean, and there can be like a back and forth though, but the priority essentially with businesses making profit is offering something to customers that they find of value. Would you agree or disagree with that
well,
description?
value is definitely subjective.
Sure.
But the problem is, profits are basically defined as the excess amount of funds you have left over after costs of running a business. Um, it's nothing wrong, like I said, nothing wrong with simply making money. Nothing. I don't think there's anything simply with that. It's how a lot of these companies tend to go about it to maximize every little dollar, and they'll use any legal any tactic at their legal disposal to do so, and sometimes not so much, especially with like maybe pollution. But when you have a system that's totally, or at least not, I should say, hyper fixated on the idea of just maximizing as much money because you don't want to be the guy that's losing out and eventually broke, it sort of tends to have certain incentives to go a certain direction. Now, are there balances in place to sort of try to help out with that? Sure. But for
So
me,
what would so
if we're, huh?
in
So
this context, wouldn't those balances be the customers?
they could be. I mean, if there's sufficient competition and the people have reasonable access to other businesses, or I mean, I don't know exactly like the whole possible, like gamut of options that they may have, but that's just usually what it is. But then again, competition is never a perfect thing. Market's never a perfect thing. I don't think anyone's arguing that, but it's a complex, like economics is a complex like machine and a thing that really, in order for me to speak on it too much anymore, I probably
No,
would
no, I
probably
just
would
on
be
the
speaking on my ass.
just on the conceptual level, in your opinion. So let's say let's make a claim here that customers are the are one of the checks and balances on the company, and let's look at it this way: if the company is selling an expensive product, too expensive for most customers, they're unable to buy it. So if they try to be a monopoly and raise prices, I mean, to some degree, some people will, pay the higher prices, but more customers will start dropping off, and at some point, it's not profitable for them. So that's one. The other thing is if the company gets a bad reputation and the customers are sensitive to a bad reputation, they don't want to get a faulty item, or they don't want to buy products from a company that did bad things in a particular context. So that would be a checks and balance. And well, I mean, suppose those two examples. Do you think that's like conceptually? Do you think that's like a sort of checks and balance on a company?
Yeah, to a degree, I think it is, but nothing's a lock. Nothing's actually guaranteed. So, but the problem is,
Sure.
if you have a lot of these other companies mimicking like the big boys, as it were, to have if they're going on to basic similar practices, then people are really, even with competition, are hard pressed to like go to someone or a company that's actually doing things that are more ethical, because a company tends to do things more ethical in the sense of do right by the customer, do right by society, as ambiguous as that might be. But the general gist, if they do that, then they're less likely to be, um, let's say there's someone else who's going to be really unscrupulous who comes along and undercuts them, and next thing you know, that nice guy's out of business. And that's where it typically trends towards. Not always, but it does. But yeah, so there are so think of it as co-determination as a way that you maybe balance out that sort of those tendencies to want to just do those maybe less than scrupulous things, but in the end increase productivity and overall stability in the economy, and with these businesses in the economy. And yeah, overall it seems to be like a generally what I would consider a plus. But if
No, I'm
somebody,
not. I'm not necessarily disputing that side of the business. I'm just asking specifically if there are market mechanisms to add checks and balances to companies.
yeah, I mean with regulation, but that's the
No,
R
no, no.
word.
Like
Don't want to
not
say it.
not
Don't want to say
not
it.
government. Sorry, not government regulation. Market mechanisms.
Possibly. I mean, I'd
So
really have
I
to
gave
look.
two examples. What did you think of those?
I said they could work to varying degrees. It depends on the situation of what the how much competition you have, and what all the other companies basically doing the kind of the same thing. So it all really depends. I like I said, obviously I'm no economic fucking like professor or some shit, but to me, like I said, these things are a bit more complicated than
Okay,
for me
I'll
for me
read
to
out.
give for me for me to give like a confident answer.
Let me read out a statement, sorry, a quote, and tell me what you think. Okay. Free markets incentivizes us to care about the well-being of others because we can benefit from providing them with the goods and services that they want. In other words, to maximize profits means you are maximizing the value to other people holding the profits in their pockets.
Is that it? Like
Yep.
who's that from?
I'm not sure. I just wrote it down in my research notes.
I mean, anything's possible. I mean, I'm not
No,
denying
I
that.
mean, sorry. As I appreciate that anything's possible. I'm just saying, like, as a
Mhm.
concept, if you want to sell something to someone else, you have to be concerned with what they find value, what improves their lives, what helps them pursue their own happiness. If you are able to produce such a product or service, then they will buy from you and you will get that profit that you were looking for. But the notion here is you are concerned for others' well-being in the context of making a product that will improve their well-being.
Now, for me to answer this, um, like I said, that's a pretty broad question. So I say that could be a thing. I'll answer it like that.
How else would you do it then?
Honestly, I don't know. This sort of like actual scenario is I've heard it before, talked about before, but it's been a while. A lot of these conversations I've had when you guys are hitting on these specific like scenarios, like, well, I mean,
This is
it
very
sounds,
broad.
yeah, but
This is
it
very
sounds,
broad.
but I'm admitting that to a degree, it can work out. To where, yeah, it's having to be beneficial to each party involved. Getting what this person gets this person gets that, but at the same time, you got these companies. Well, people lie, and
Mhm.
sometimes they only need to make a sometimes they only need to make a sale once or quite a few times, even though they lied, and that's it. Yes, they're out of business, but guess what? Now they can pitch a tent or pick up their tent and move somewhere else and do it for a little while until they start to get called out.
Sure.
So, so I mean,
I
this
mean,
is different. Yeah.
you can have those. I'll answer your scenario. I mean, sure. If they have very little startup costs and they can rip you off for a large profit, then like fold up shop, do it somewhere else. Obviously, at some point they'll run out of people, but overall, uh, they will. But let's take like a regular business. So potentially, it could have taken 5 to 10, maybe 15 years to set up. It could have investors or at the very least the original owner putting in like savings or remortgaging the house to start the business. And just in there, there is some upfront cost. So if those kinds of people, and I'm not saying everyone is, but it's more or less like the average example. If those kinds of people like produce something that is cheating the customers at some point will learn of this and tell everyone else, in the example of reputation, and people will stop buying from them. So that initial upfront money, the 5 to 15 years investment to get to a good position, capital from other people, from, I don't know, other people who want to invest in your company, all that is gone. And typically, like, people that invest money in the company, they'd like to see it grow, or at the very least they would like to see it grow in the long term. So I think because people are invested in making a profit, making a company, a long term profit, then there would be less incentive to cheat the customer. At the very least, they'll try to please them and have a good reputation. Obviously, there are. I'm not saying that the system is perfect and everyone's perfect, but as a whole, I think that's like more or less the concept behind the market.
Well, the market can also be the labor market too, and a lot of costs are really saved by making sure that the company finds ways of paying the employees as least as possible, which in our kind of society is not really seen as super terrible unless a person's working for like, $7 an hour and sometimes a sweatshop or something like that.
Mhm.
But yeah, so there are other ways to look at it too. Customers, yeah, the customers are definitely important. If you treat them right, they'll come back to you. Generally they will. Um, but generally,
Uh,
like for example, Amazon, which is a monopoly, or not a monopoly, but like a kind of like a oligopoly of sorts, at least, or effectively the one of the few big boys in a particular market. And they like have all these customers, and the people who
mhm.
usually end up getting boned are the other workers themselves, who aren't really allowed to unionize, or at least the Amazon has been very pretty fervent in their anti-union activities, and because of that, the workers, I mean, they suffer on either benefits or wages, and the company Amazon is more profitable than ever. And it's just like, hey, listen, we don't mind you making, as a society, we don't mind you making plenty of money, but could you at least treat your your employees at least to what they can make, like at least $20 an hour, some real benefits? Could you at least do that? But of course,
Sure.
I get looked at as a filthy commie state. Not by you, but
No,
um,
I
you
get
know,
it. I'll answer the thing. So in general, Amazon is a very large company. It employs, I think, 14 million people globally. Um,
it's a lot.
yeah, it's not just the US. Obviously, it's a global company.
Oh yeah,
Um, it provides a lot of value for customers. So at the very least, like, I would say, take a product of Amazon, compare it to Walmart or other places. I don't think Amazon is overcharging its customers. I could be wrong. Last time I checked, I think Amazon is pretty aggressive on prices,
right.
meaning the consumer benefits. I'm not entirely impressed with their treatment of employees. They have, however, recently increased their minimum hourly wage to $18 an hour,
Right.
making Amazon. So this is specifically for warehouse workers, but people in offices or programmers can do over 100K easily. Um, and in addition, they have a lot of automation in their warehouse, so it's largely automated already, and I think it works overnight and stuff like that. Because the robots, they don't need to sleep, so they have like shifts for the regular humans, where the robots just go back and forth. Obviously, there's stuff that needs people to do. But I would say, with regards to the $18 an hour, that kind of makes them, at the very least, earn more than regular Mondragon employees in Spain.
You're right. To a point about Mondragon, they are definitely, I believe, not believe, I've seen them. With the way I've looked at the company, they're acting as a labor aristocracy, basically. Even though technically Mondragon has a socialistic sort of structure, they do
What's a
rely
labor
on
aristocracy?
a labor aristocracy. Well, I was about to get to that. Like a labor aristocracy, basically, as a company, like a large socialistic company, or a company that employs socialist ideas, or very pro labor, but they rely on a lot of outside contractors who happen to be capitalist,
Mm,
structured. So they take advantage of that to bolster to bolster their company because they see it as a way to, yeah, maximize their earnings. So that definitely needs to be addressed. So you're right, Mondragon's not perfect, but see, here's the thing, right? Just real quick, like one minute, like not you, but other people will say, "Oh my God, socialism never works," and then what do you mean by socialism? And then they tell you this, that, and the other. Well, actually, Mondragon's technically socialist, and they're working just fine. I mean, maybe not perfectly, but they're working pretty good. No, 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 that's they're doing bad things. Well, okay, but you say one, so it all depends how you look at it. But for me, the Mondragon issue definitely has to be addressed, at least in my opinion. But you're right to bring that up, by the way, because I
No,
think that is
I
really.
don't mean to trash on Mondragon. I mean, I'm just in terms of like salary. I didn't. I'm not really familiar with that aristocracy element you just raised, but um, look, Mondragon is a company from the 80s. I think it's got about 65. I'm not sure, 65,000 total employees. I think it's like a federation of cooperatives, and some parts are maybe not as cooperative, but some parts are. But yeah, I'm not against it because it's like a different model of company in a capitalist society. And if more socialists think, well, I like this sort of company, I will work for this sort of company, I would start this sort of company or co-op. I mean, you know, by all means, as long as you don't force anyone, you can start a co-op, a cooperative. You can start a union. You can start a credit union. You can start a commune, a hippie commune if you like, plant turnips all day and sing songs with your friends. All this is fine with me. Like, as long as you're free to do so and no one's forcing you, by all means, do what makes you happy.
Yeah, and there's that word though, force. Of course,
Uh
a certain
oh.
kind of force, certain kind of force whose name is a horse. His name is Mr. Ed. Um,
Oh, you saw
but
Mr. Ed? You didn't see Mr. Ed. Come on. The black and white
Mr.
Mr. Ed. Did you see it?
is the part where they fed him peanut butter just to get him talking.
Who's the human that Mr. Ed talked to?
Oh God, he talked to a lot of people. He talked to everybody. I think.
No, there's the one like constant human.
I forget honestly. It's
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, go on.
destroyed. You fucking own me. I guess I got to be a fucking Minnicus now.
It's a
Fuck
black
me.
and white TV. It's a black and white series. I'm surprised anyone because we in the UK we had Channel 4 and we had like these black and white movies on Sunday. So I would know, but anyway,
Oh,
continue.
it's an ancient show. Also,
Oh yeah, yeah,
if
absolutely.
but if you watched the Dave Chappelle show when it was on,
Mm-hmm.
he made fun of it like the racist Mr. Red. Ow, that
Oh,
shit was
okay.
ungodly funny. Um, but yeah, it's like because he talked about racist animals. Rin Tin Tin was racist, and there's um dolphin who hated black people. They call him James the blank
Wait,
hating
let's not get
dolphin.
demonetized. Hold on.
No,
YouTube
no, I'm not.
algorithm
But
gods.
I'm not. I'm
We're
not.
no, we're gonna rewind here.
Hey, I didn't.
Do not
I didn't
ban us.
say. Hey, I didn't say that. I didn't say that thing. I'm not streaming, by the way. I'm just recording. But
Mm-hmm.
if you want to stream, that's I don't know if you're streaming, but that's all right. But I ain't gonna. Hey, look, I ain't gonna get you fucked up. I don't do that. Yeah, it just but yeah, just yeah. If you want to look into I can't do it right now because I'm recording. But if you want to look into the idea of what a labor aristocracy is basically like a socialistic institution that's basically taking advantage of other um, other sorts of capitalist enterprise to basically do what they gotta do to run their business.
Okay.
Um, and so it's basically kind of like that, which is an important idea
Mm-hmm.
where things could go awry because like I said, my system's not perfect. My preferred system isn't ideal all the way or even 100% consistent, but I'm just trying to work within the framework of like within reality. I know that's not a good enough answer for a lot of people, but for the time being, that's got to be.
Actually, that's
Uh,
interesting because can you expand on what you mean within reality? Because so you mean like these sorts of exam? No, no, it's actually really a positive point you're raising because it means so these examples have worked in reality, and you'd like to replicate things that have worked in reality. Is that more or less what you're saying?
yeah, I mean, or at least investigate them. Like if this first co-determination thing, by the way, has been happening in Germany for 45 years. It's a
Mm-hmm.
popular policy, working very well for them. and I figure, hey, let's see what this is about. Let's see if we can apply that to our situation, or if, in some way. Doesn't necessarily have to be exactly the same, but it can be like something similar. Um, because I'm a huge not so much a believer, but an observer of the idea that nothing's really perfect. Universe isn't perfect. If it was, then technically we wouldn't be here, because there'd be equal parts of matter and antimatter, which would have annihilated each other in a flash of
That's
light.
too deep for me, man. Yeah, right over my head.
Okay, okay. Let's just say we needed a little bit of imperfection to make this universe happen, and for us to be in it. And this
Chaos
so,
and
so
order,
like,
yeah.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Case in order, but so it's just a best attempt to try to maximize, liberty, personal happiness, freedom, the respect for each other. It's just that sort of way to where, yes and no, like with like the objectivism, is like, can it technically have within certain frameworks a quote unquote moral system? Technically, yes, probably. I mean, the way it seems to be structured, the way I see it
Oh,
and
b
understand it,
before we
as an
jump into my before we jump
yeah.
into my philosophy, I just do have to ask. It just sounds to me to some degree, and I'm gonna be a little bit harsh because I just wanna push for a commitment here. It sounds to me like it's sort of capital your system is sort of capitalist with government intervention in the case of, worker representation on boards, which, it's a policy. I'll give you that, and you could say it's a socialist themed policy, but it the economy overall is still largely capitalist, or are you saying that this policy kind of jumps ahead or skips ahead and says it is somewhat capitalist, but now it has enough element of socialism that I am happy with it?
Well, you're right. It does. It's definitely a mix, actual solid mix, or would be. And you're right. Directionally, I'm a directional socialist. I'd like to move us slowly but surely in that direction. Maybe hopefully sooner than later, if the people are supportive of these ideas through the electoral
Mhm.
process. But yeah, you're right. It's definitely a mix. I'm not a pure socialist, just like most people aren't pure capitalists. So it's definitely like a, not like an absolute thing. Um, Generally, unless you think any public ownership of the means of production is full blown socialist, then AK Sarah socialism works. Hey, um, but
Well, basically, it keeps changing, so that's why I need to
yeah,
keep asking.
well, you're right. It's fair questions, but for me, like I said, public ownership of the means of production, which could be interpreted as a worker controlled enterprise or worker owned enterprise, at least partially. So it's partially socialistic, and we're more in that direction. Um, because the definition doesn't say a society that only has public ownership of the means of production. So the definition doesn't say that exclusively, which it could mean that, but again, not exclusively. But yeah,
But from
yeah.
your point of view, the co-determination, that's where you want to be. Is that can I say is that the end goal, or is that the halfway point, or what is it from your point of view?
Really, it's up to people what they want to support. For me, I think it's a good step in a direction. It doesn't have to be the end, but it can also be, if it doesn't go any farther than that, fair enough.
What is
But
the further point then?
possibly getting worker cooperatives to start off on the ground, so to speak, and grow into places in the economy where they can, and people can have true, true alternatives to work at if they wanted to where like the smaller businesses, for example, would be definitely a mix between like cooperatives that start up on their own, maybe with government assistance, to get them
Okay.
going, and so they can grow on their own, and eventually, you know, be
What
integrated into
sort
the
of
economy.
assistance?
Like you just like tax breaks, tax write offs. Hey, you start a co-op, you get a tax break or a tax write off for starting up, and perhaps maybe some for those who possibly qualify. I don't know the exact policy what it would look like. It's just a general idea that they would get basically um like for instance in Italy, right? If you go on
Mhm.
unemployment, if you go on
I know the situation in Italy.
okay, but it's kind of similar like that. The government just gives you some money as a seed to start up a
Mhm.
cooperative business, and then you can take it from there.
Um, I'm not sure about seed money, but they do have tax breaks.
Okay, but they do have a program. I forget what it's called, but basically, it's an alternative to unemployment. Where instead of drawing on unemployment, the government just gives you a lump sum and says, "Hey, take this, start your
Does
enterprise,
it
and
really?
good luck."
Oh, I
Yes.
would love to see. I would love to see that policy. So, literally says we won't pay you or instead of welfare or long-term welfare, here's some money. Start your own company. Good luck.
Yeah, if you want to, yes. I
I'd
believe that's
love.
what
I'd love to see that policy. I
I
would
believe.
absolutely love to see it.
No, if you want to just type in, because I can't do it because I got my streaming,
Sure.
my recording set up just right. But if you just want to go to Google and real quick and just look up the idea, it's Italy cooperatives and unemployment, it should give you pretty close to the idea of the name of the
I'll take your
program.
word for it for now.
But yeah, it's a fascinating idea. But of course, it involves that evil government. um, but jokes aside, and all that. But
It is evil.
okay.
No, just kidding. Government in my world, government is a necessary good.
That's fair enough. Hey, fair enough, man. You are a brother man to me. I don't care what they say.
Okay. Did you want to talk about any particular subjects?
Yeah, yeah. Like for example, when I had the conversation with Zulu,
Mm-hmm.
since he's not here to
Mm-hmm.
since he's not here to defend himself, I'm just saying like there's some ideas that he brought up, like those scenarios that he was giving me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, get the one with the flashlight. I didn't do too good on that one, but I do have an answer for that one actually. It took me a second to think of it, but I
So
think
I'll
like this.
before you give me. So look, the thing with him is he's not trying to. It's not a comparative system. So it's not like he's saying like sorry like comparative economics. It's not like he's saying here is my system, here is your system. Let's compare key points and see who is better. His approach is to just attack and ridicule other people's system. But from his point of view, his system is pretty poor. He doesn't have a lot of good examples where he could say that his system will work on any scale whatsoever. And he's not really defending it. He's just defending his system on like rhetorical grounds. But if you were to ask him, define your system, or how would companies come work in your ANCAP land, and would they be protected with property rights and stuff like that? That is available in Germany, for example. He doesn't have anything to say. So when you are going to give me the example that he said something that upset you, it's not
Oh,
real in a sense. It's not a real system. He's just attacking, or at the very least, he's trying to make you think a bit harder on the foundations of your system. But that's the benefit from your point of view. So you can improve how you see your system. But he
oh yeah.
isn't defending any system of his own. He's just defending a
Okay,
concept.
okay. But I wasn't upset at all. If anything, I was kind of like, if anything, upset at myself because I should have been better. I mean, I've been talking about these things for 20 years, but the flashlight example he gave
Hmm.
was a variation of something else I heard like 12 years ago.
Infrastructure.
Like, yeah, the infrastructure one. So where basically his argument, his scenario was there's a guy, he's on the side of the road shining a light on with his flashlight on the road. Does
Hmm.
he have the right to stop cars and say, "Give me $5 or else I'm shining a light. I'm giving you a service"? The thing is, I should have asked him, was that guy working for the government? So if he would have answered, "Oh, does that matter?" I'm like, "It kind of does. Yes, please." And if the answer is yes, then the guy's obviously breaking the rules of his job. He should be looked into and held accountable. And if he's not working for the government, he's just some random jagoff shining a light on the street, and he's saying, "Give me money or else." But the problem is, he isn't the guy shining the light. Is not the one providing the monetary system and the monetary notes to basically keep that road funded through economic activity. He's just some random guy on the side of the road trying to shine a light and say, "Give me money or else." And even so, right? Because the person who could be driving could be just driving. They're not making any money. They're just driving. They're just using the road. So they may not even
Sorry,
may
sorry.
be making a monetary gain. It's like for me, it's weird. That's
You're
what.
gonna have to give me way more context to what you just said because I'm not okay. He's not part of the government. Sure. I don't know if he flashes someone in the eyes and they have an accent, is he insured? I don't know really the context of the example, but I would imagine
Okay,
it's to do with infrastructure and but basically it's not necessarily the example per se. He's attacking the concept of a social good or a public good. That
right,
there isn't,
right.
and then I would to some degree, like Minakis would agree that there is a public good is like it's not, or it's basically like the economic the economic term is like something that everyone has access to and they don't need to pay for it. So they can all obviously someone does pay for it at a previous stage, but or a variety of people pay for it at the previous stage. But he was more attacking the concept of a public property or public good or social good.
Because he
So
thinks,
yeah.
yeah, because he thinks, well, at least his framework says that public services or government property isn't a thing because it's just either invalid because that's what his framework says and that's it. Yeah, if it's so invalid, why are you using it? So it's obviously there. You just don't agree with it when it comes down to it.
Well,
But
so
yeah,
I think in his and to be fair, my world as well, there'll be like a private. So let's say a road. You can have private roads. You can pay like a toll booth for using the road. You can pay like an electronic thing that scans your license plate, or there can be, for example, advertisements on the side of the road that could pay for the road. But there will be a road. People can use the road if they're paying a toll. Let's take the worst example. If they're paying a toll booth per section, they're paying for using it, and people who are not using it are not paying for it, and probably it's not going to cost billions and billions of dollars to fix the roads because the government is highly inefficient when it comes to spending this money. So that's technically the case for it.
no, the problem with that is if you're going to put up a toll road, you're charging literally everybody who's passing it with a car. Okay, that's
Hmm.
what you're doing. But the idea of the public roads is that the only people like the government already funds this stuff at the beginning of the fiscal year. I mean, you call it whatever you
Right,
want, but
but it's not from
that's
thin air. It's not money
but
from thin air. Someone pays
but
for it.
it literally is money from thin air. It's money
I
created by
disagree.
the by the treasury. The money is literally printed. Notes are printed by. Well, the
But
thing is, the
okay,
government.
so pause,
This is
pause for
this is
one second.
fiat.
It's not that's not okay, but it's not. Someone has to pay for it either in terms of inflation or in terms of like if they sell government debt or the Fed buys debt from some. So it's not a
Or
free meal.
no, yeah, yeah,
Even in
yeah.
terms of MMT, you could
I
do
was
this,
getting
but
to
at
that.
some point you need to raise taxes to take suck the money out of the economy, so it goes back to no. Otherwise, you'll have inflation or hyperinflation.
Well, I was kind
So
of getting to. I was actually getting to like the government. Not all programs, but the beginning of the year, the fiscal year, the government automatically funds. The funds already appropriated for these programs or whatever.
mhm.
And then throughout the year, people they benefit from that government infrastructure, and they're able to make their monetary gains. The notes that are provided by the government, not just the services, the whole shebang works together. For
Sorry,
it's kind of
I'm not clear on what you mean the notes provided by the government.
monetary notes, the money,
The actual cash,
cash, yes, money, cash.
the government prints the cash and people benefit from the cash being around.
Yeah, they use it to transact their economic
Yeah.
activity.
What about the cash that was there before,
Before what?
like 6 months earlier, before they printed it?
Well, that was last year. The money before
Right, but
that.
it's not that the cash went stale and now you need to replace it or like it evaporated. There was there was cash the previous year, let's say. They're printing new money that the previous people could use the existing cash in circulation. No?
Yeah, I mean the government prints more money at a time, but as taxes are taken in at the federal level at least,
Hmm.
the monetary notes are just destroyed to minimize the amount of floating free flowing currency in the economy. I mean that's how fiat currency, at least our fiat currency work or economy works. Um,
Okay.
but
What? Sorry. So what is the reference to a road?
well, the road is that is something that is already funded by the government and is being provided by the government, and the monetary notes are also provided by the government. So what he was trying to say is, if the government can basically have a road with lights shining and have people pay money out of their paychecks to go to the government, why can't some random dude just walk up out of nowhere and just shine a light and say, "Hey, this is yeah, you use my light, you use my service. Now, so now you got to pay me." Except the person's going to look at them like, Oh, you working for the government? Oh, the guy's like, no. Oh, you're just some random jagoff trying to pull money your direction that you had no hand in creating at all. You're just shining a light. So he's just trying to conflate like that sort of situation. Maybe I'm not explaining it. Maybe I'm suffering from the curse of knowledge. But it's just really,
I
it's just
yeah. You may want to have that discussion with him, or like the counterexample. Sorry, the counterpoint. You may want to have it with him, because I'm not a bit lost to the whole entire context. But I don't know with regards
I thought
to
you seen it. I thought you seen it. That's why I'm sorry. I thought you seen it. I
well, I
thought you
mean,
seen it.
maybe I saw like the first part of it or something, but
No, but like for example, right? Let's move if you want, like those scenarios, right? That he gives,
mhm,
like a mugger coming out of somewhere saying, "Give me your money." Like what? Like the guy's coming out of nowhere,
hypothetical.
right? As a hypothetical scenario, right? So the
Hmm.
guy's coming out of nowhere. He's initiating action on you. All of a sudden, say, "Give me money." The guy is not from the government. He's just some random jagoff trying to say, "Give me my fucking money or else." I'm like, "Dude, what the fuck?" No, then they do shoot you and that's it. But what he's trying to say is there's no justification for, even though the government provides the monetary notes, the financial system that we all do bad, that we all do our business and economic activity on, and the roads and the other services that all tie in together. He says even though the government provides all that to make it work and happen, and people pay their part of their paychecks back into it to keep us, to keep it going. He says the
Hmm.
government doesn't actually have a right to do that, even though they provide these services. This is like walking into this is my example now. This is like walking into a restaurant. You go in, you sit down. Hell, you walk past the sign that says, "Hey, we prosecute people who dine and dash," right?
Hmm.
And then you go in, you sit down, and you order a hoagie. Now you're not really starving, but you just want a hoagie. You just want it, right? You don't necessarily need it or want it. It's just, hey, I want a hoagie. Then you eat, you sit down, and you basically,
Okay, I get the example. Go on. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
What's
yeah,
the end bit? Like you dine and dash, or
huh?
you pay for your hoagie?
Yeah, so let's say the guy eats a hoagie, man, that was a good hoagie. Then the waitress comes up, okay, here's your bill, and the guy's like, wait a minute, I didn't sign a contract to pay for this hoagie, and the waitress is like,
Well, let's. Okay, so I'll answer this question. I think in the context of the restaurant, obviously, I think Zulu would agree that if you went to a restaurant and you ordered something and they gave it to you and you enjoyed it, you should pay for it, and he won't disagree with
ah,
you there. I think neither would I. I think the idea is the services that you're saying. So I can't speak for him too much.
right, right.
With regards, there is an element of consent with regards to the services you're receiving. Did you consent to
Is
receive
there
them and
consent?
pay for taxes? So that would be a very important point from his point of view.
Until you have the consent to both, but what if the guy comes in and doesn't consent to pay?
If you went to, but the whole setup that you just gave me with going to the store, ordering something, seeing how that seems like you're consenting to be there. If you come out of your house and say, I want to use this road, you're using the road, give me 20% of all your or 50% of all your money, then that's like this is a bit of a longer back and forth, I suppose.
Well,
Um,
it's probably gonna come down to the idea. Well, is it private property? Well, actually, no. It's a restaurant that's ran by the government.
okay. So, but you're still buying a hoagie, paying just for that hoagie and walking out.
Yeah, but still, to get what you want. I mean, other people work in the restaurant. The prices are set by the house, and
Mhm.
you don't want to pay the price, but you still want to enjoy the hoagie. And yet, do you have other people that say working in the back of the restaurant, delivery drivers, or whoever else
Mhm.
that may not have nothing to do, right, or directly making your hoagie? Now all of a sudden it's like, all of them needed to work to make the whole restaurant work, either directly or indirectly. They got to get paid too. Now all of a sudden
Mhm.
you come in to basically steal service. Basically, you're stealing the service effectively. So that's what he was trying to like basically
Well,
saying, because it's public, therefore you're not really stealing anything. Therefore, mm,
I don't think this is a good example from your point of I wouldn't recommend using this example from your point of view, simply because, a regular restaurant capitalist, they have lots of customers, they make their profits from selling to many customers, they're able to pay the salary of the people in the back and the delivery drivers and all those things. So if you put forward your example, then the obvious point would be, well, why do we even need the government if we can just have it done in the capitalist system? Um, and I think to some degree, like you either need like a better hypothetical or something like that. But yeah. So what do you think of my reply?
No, no, it's definitely an interesting reply. It's just one of these sort of things like what people accuse me of doing of missing the point, missing the point.
I'm also not entirely comfortable of like analyzing someone else's debate
Okay,
and
okay,
giving
we
this
won't.
sort of
I
like
tell you what. I tell you
yeah.
what. We won't do that. No, because the Zulu's not here to defend himself, so we won't do that. Um, which I'm sure maybe one of his, you know, his subscribers will probably respond. No, this is not that. It's there for
It's
this
fine.
capitalism. Yeah.
Subscribers
So
are. This is something I am comfortable in saying. Subscribers are all edgy children, so don't worry about it. Edgy teenagers.
no, no. These are like maybe you can give me a scenario on your own, like why you think like public services or basically me paying back into a provider of services, even though I continuously enjoy and benefit either directly or indirectly, to be able to get what I'm able to get in the first place, those monetary notes. I mean, if you want to think the monetary notes is like strips of I don't want to say strips of paper. That's what they are. But like maybe like I don't know sticks, sticks with a stamp on it. And it's
Well, I mean, before basically the original banknotes were like a sort of IOU that said the
mhm.
bank is holding this gold in your name, and then you have like an IOU saying when you're at the bank, I no longer hold. I give them this note saying I no longer own these nuggets of gold or bars of gold. X amount of nuggets now belong to you. It's basically the idea, and essentially, like without getting too much into the historical, which I just gave a tiny amount, banks, were able to manage the cash privately. There was something in the US that hampered it. I am not 100% clear on this particular element, but Alexander Hamilton, when he built the country, he centralized some banks in a way, not like the one central bank, but he structured banks in a central way that was the first bank or the second bank. And as a result, it caused a lot of instability in the market. In addition to gold, the minimum amount of gold you needed to have in reserve, the banks, the government banks, like had always had an issue with it, or even the central bank that came later on. Um, Whereas the Scottish way of banking and the Canadian way of banking is more free market based, and that would have been a better example to follow. But
What do you mean?
in general, so that was just like a caveat. But in general, banks would take care of the money. It would be tied to gold, and it worked. I don't know, well for some I don't know, 100, 200 odd years, maybe more.
Well, the gold standard, like when we were in the United States, when we were on it, it kind of worked too, but it was also less than stable too, because it was prone to basically people just hoarding a bunch of it and manipulating like the economy that way. It was subject to that sort of thing, if I understand it correctly. But secondly, and that's why we got off of it. Is the fiat system perfect? Absolutely not. Does it have problems? Sure, absolutely. But any system does, I mean, to one degree or another. Is that an excuse? No, but that's just currently the nature of the beast. But secondly, when these people like you and maybe others who say free market, do you mean free markets like markets that are just able to do business, or do you mean like a market that is totally 100% unencumbered by any regulation or government interference whatsoever, like an absolutist position, or is it just like a general thing?
Um, I'll describe it like this. So there is a principal position here where the government does not intervene in the economy, uh, or all no regulations. um, no picking favorites, no subsidization, and basically everything is people interacting with other people. So to some degree, like ANCAPs will also make the point that people can interact with other people peacefully, and the government doesn't. And if both parties consent, the government does not need to intervene, and that intervention is negative. In my case, which is different than ANCAPs, the government plays a role in protecting individual rights. So if someone hurt you, the government will, be an agent in your name and either punish the other person or protect you from the other person. If someone stole money from you, which in the context of economics, I would assume you may connect that to the market, but it's still in the case of individual rights. If someone stole from you, the government will protect your individual rights here as well. Basically, the areas of government that I would like to have are police to reduce violence and I mean specifically outright violence in society. Roughly, this whole concept is to reduce violence so that society can flourish more and we can be more peaceful. In addition to police, back to the point, we also have courts, so we can mitigate or litigate disputes between two people so that they don't need to get violent. And we have an army so that we can protect, or the government can protect us from outside threats. Uh, and apart from that, it's everyone is good.
Hey, maybe if we can convince ANCAPs if the army was a Kiss army,
What's
um,
what's that?
the music band, or it's got boomer shit. Never mind. You know the old rock glam
I know
band.
Kiss,
The
but what does that mean? A Kiss army?
Kiss army is basically like the group of fanatical fans of the Kiss music group, like the Kiss army. But
Okay, sure.
never mind. The joke was a stinker. It bombed. Yeah. Okay. So it's like free
Sorry,
market.
I'm
I mean,
foreign.
no, it's all right. Hey, nobody's perfect. No, I'm just kidding.
I know.
Hey,
No
you're
one's
great.
perfect at all. What can I do?
Hey, hey, zombie hunter. I think you're great. All right. Um,
Thank you, man.
but yeah, it's like free markets. Like, so you're saying like it's a bit of a complicated answer, but basically, if it's an absolute free market that has no regulation, no winners or losers picked by a government, it's just the markets just do what they are going to do,
Let me
on
let me
their own.
help. Let me help there because I can see there is a concern in your voice. So basically, there will be regulation, but the regulation will be market based, not government regulation. Or let's put it this way: in any system that you leave it alone, it will start to regulate itself a little, and it will start to be concerned about standards, and there'll be third parties that help customers. Let's say, for example, if there's a asymmetry in information between the buyer and the seller, there could be third parties that could make that information more equal, and you could pay them. So, just an example. But in general, like market-based regulations could be fit-for-purpose contractual frameworks, which is like a sort of legal position that companies willingly put themselves in, saying this product is fit for purpose, and if it's not, I'm giving you the permission to sue me more easily. Standard bodies, consumer protection and safety groups, certification firms, business insurance could be a big deal. Third party inspectors I mentioned, but also recommendation engines, reputation, and apart from all those things, with regards to government protecting individual rights, fraud is an element of theft. If someone like sells you a car and saying this engine is 2 liter, but it's actually 1.2, and you pay for it, that fraud is a sort of theft that you can take them to court or ask the police to handle. Did that answer some of your questions?
Yeah. Because some people do take like the term free market to mean any sort of the devoid of any sort of like regulation from the government whatsoever. So I mean, some people so sometimes free
It,
market
it is
can,
to some degree, yeah.
yeah. I mean, but
Oh, you
is
mean
that
in the case of theft?
like or anything like is it you the market is totally unencumbered and unrestricted to do what it does on its own.
Mm-hmm.
So some people like take that absolutist position, but others say free market. But they mean a market that's, as long as it follows rules set in place, it's free to do its thing. Which, I mean, it all depends on how like these words are looked at, interpreted, the contextual phrasing, that sort of thing. And that's what sometimes gets me, like, that allows some people to play kind of like fast and loose with what they mean. Like, wait, what do you mean a free market? Like, what do you mean by this? And that's why sometimes it takes me a good while, like on stream or on discussion like this, to sit and actively think about it during the discussion. And next thing I'm trying to process it, like how they mean and where they're going with it. Um, and it's like, and that can seem like I just got stunned like this. Sometimes that's the case, but I'm trying to think, what is this dude saying? But it's just trying to I guess really get to the heart of the matter, because I think sometimes rhetoric and narrative framing can really have the potential to um, you know hide the heart of the matter and sort of like obfuscate what's actually going on. Um, but yeah, okay, that's what I was just asking about you. But did you have any other comments on anything else, or was there another topic you wanted to move to?
Well, I wanted to ask if you understood my example of a free market, or was I obfuscating?
No, no, you're sounding like a free, like that's why I was asking those questions, to make sure like your version of it was free. Like, but some people are more maybe the more absolutist about it, and sometimes
It's more
people take
principled, yeah.
right more right. They take the more principled position because they want to just be as not extreme, but like to further to the purest possible position of what that word or that phrase means, and then they go from there. But if I
I
try
can
to,
actually expand maybe. No, sorry, I won't expand. I'll give like an overview.
eh,
So in general, in this kind of political and economic system, there will be a separation between state and church, state and the economy, state and science, and state and education. So the government has no role into our religion, has no role how we interact with other individuals as long as individual rights are observed. The government has no role with science or telling us what is the right way or what is the wrong way, and it has no role in ideas and how to influence the children of a country. There's none of those roles. Just protect individual rights. I would add though that with the complete difference to ANCAPs and general libertarians, my system or the system that I'm pretty sure that other objectivists follow, there will be a restriction on guns,
all right,
which I can expand on in terms of like the implementation of it. Uh,
yeah, sure.
you can have guns. Um, I think the it's something I was thinking with some other people. Basically, the restriction is that the gun that you buy will have to be registered with the government, and you need to take out insurance on that gun. So basically, it's not regulated, but if the insurance company thinks you are, or any insurance that's willing to offer you, if no insurance company is willing to offer you insurance on that gun, you cannot take it. In addition, if you buy something and enable thinks that you're a threat to their safety when you bought that, they can go to court. And in that particular instance, if they have evidence that your weapon needs to be taken away, then under that specific condition, then it will. And lastly, in addition, it is you can't have militias and you can't have gangs. So you can own a gun, you can protect yourself. You just need to register it. You need to get insurance. You can have several guns as long as the insurance company is happy with it, and you can't be in a gang or be in a militia.
Yeah, yeah, like a
Sorry,
violent gang.
did I bore you? Did I bore you?
No, 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 no.
This is just
I'm
a
just
very important issues between me and
no,
ANCAPs and me
no.
and libertarians.
That was my fault. No, you're talking about like how in your society there might be some necessity to restrict people's right to have a firearm, and that can be sensible. That I'm
You
not a
can have a firearm. I'm not saying you can't.
no, no, no. I'm
It,
saying you can possibly restrict if you need to.
Well, I the government won't be restricting the insurance company that says if you're
Oh, okay.
crazy or if you can't get an insurance company to give you a liability insurance, then you can't have the gun.
So basically, the government would have the private insurance do the regulating,
Yes.
and I guess as
So
long as
it's
it's
a,
like
it's a
as
it's
it comes.
important because the regulation in terms of the government is just a blanket something, right? Like everyone has to be or either you need a license, something. It's just like it's a very aggressive blanket something. Here, insurance company checks on a case by case basis, which is fine. And also the court example is a case by case basis, which is fine as well. Uh, but yeah, so you can have a gun, you can have several guns as long as the insurance company is happy with you. And let's say if you violated something or you're mentally unstable, it may choose not to. But but on the other hand, like if you need lots and lots of dynamite, and the government says you just can't have it, but you're a legitimate mining company and you need lots and lots of dynamite, that in this case you can make the claim to the insurance company says, look, we need it for business, so please give us insurance. They said, okay, this seems okay, and you can buy lots of dynamite for a particular reason.
Is the Acme company, man, for real. So basically, what you're saying is, I was just trying to say earlier, like, kind of brings a whole new phrase to meaning, as long as it isn't government. um,
Again,
you know,
look,
but
overall, the idea is to, from the government point of view, is to reduce violences in society, to have a peaceful society, to have people focusing on being productive and not on being worried for their lives. And yeah, just basically, if the government protects the people or allows them to be free, the people will be free to be productive, and that's great. So it's kind of like in terms of stuff like economic growth, this is like the best model ever.
uh, as far as that, I need to look into that before I can give an actual
No problem.
affirmative or negatory on that. Because a lot of people say, "Oh, my system's the best. My system's the best." It may be, but I mean, the thing is, if a system is like, for example, is it just the best on just straight up maximizing profits or economic activity, but then all of a sudden it kind of leaves people to fend for themselves. Like people are serving markets instead of the other way around. It's but then again you can get in the whole discussion. Well, people are markets and markets are people, and like it seems to be a bit of at least confusion on that. So
Well,
it's like if you have
well,
a
actually,
yeah.
it's a good point that you bring this up because here's there's the concept of property rights to some degree. Like if people, you brought this up in our last conversation. You said, what if people can't do this, kind of that? Should they be excluded? And we can talk about that now. So you were saying basically, what if people, go hungry and can't they just walk up to your house and or your field and take something and walk away with it,
Well, I mean,
right?
I'm not suggesting that, but I'm
Sorry,
using like
sorry. The new.
I was using like I was using like an extreme example as like someone, let's say you have a society that's already there, and the
Hmm.
society says all the land on this large island is commonly owned, and here you come or here anyone else comes, says, I'm staking a claim right here. I'm gonna do a little bit of work on this little 1 acre plot of land, and hey, it's mine because I say so because I worked on it because that's what the theory says. That's the moral thing to do. If I work on this piece of land, it's mine. And now everyone has to stay away from it and stay off my borders because that's what I want. And they have to respect that because of my theory. And if they don't, two eyes for an eye, and this, that, and the other. It's just this whole sort of moralistic justification for you still getting what you want, the respect of other people to do what you want and stay off your fucking lawn that you consider yours. And
Okay,
then
okay.
even it is an extreme example. It
You're
is an
getting
extreme
you're
example.
getting a bit hot under the collar.
Oh no,
Okay,
no, I'm cool, baby. I'm cool, baby.
let's okay, let's do this, right? Let's so not in an example where there's an island and they already have a set of property rights. Let's say we're on 10 people are on an island and
Mhm.
they want to agree to some kind of implementation of property rights. Let's say on how to divide the island or community share the island. So, firstly, let's take out one scenario. Let's say none of them agree to what property rights should be, what would happen as a result of there being no property rights?
No, I mean, I'm sure they'll establish some sort of like
No,
recognition
no,
of it.
just for argument's sake, yeah.
Well, if they did, I'm not sure how that would look, honestly.
So there's no property rights, no one enforcing any property rights. How would
Well, I
that
mean,
turn out?
people still. I would assume people still have personal property rights. What's on that person?
No, no,
As far.
there's nothing. There's no agreement on anything.
Well, I don't know how that would look. I really don't.
Well, what did we have before property rights?
Just everything's common ownership, common. Well, not common ownership, but common, the commons. I was.
No, we had people killing each other. We had a lot of violence, and basically at some point,
We still have violence now, even.
we still have violence now. We had more back then. But basically, let's say, okay, let's take an example. Yeah, let's say I, as one of the 10 people, this is a bit of a bad example, but I, as one of the 10 people on the island, just walk around. I walk, looking for stuff, and then I see like a a planted field, like a sorry, like a road field of, I don't know, tomatoes, and there's a sign saying belongs to person number 5 on the island, and don't take this. And I really do want to take it. I'm kind of hungry, and I lean over, I cross the pathetic fence, and I pick up a pit tomato, and I'm about to eat it. Then I hear this sound. Then I realize there's an arrow sticking out of my torso, and I fall to the ground and I die. Get the end.
See, I think are you trying to start just real quick? Are you trying to start from like the blank slate theory or something like that?
Well, I just want to like explain like the benefits of property rights. So and by doing that,
No,
I'm
and
saying,
here's the thing.
what if we don't have property rights? What's the benefit of them to begin
Well,
with?
the thing is, I myself have no problem with saying property rights are a thing. It's when people want to try to take the absolute like the furthest position to say, this is my fucking land, and I mean,
Right, right.
yes, I
No,
like.
I
No,
understand.
no,
I just
no,
trying to
no.
establish what's the benefit.
Wait, it's just cordoning off, a piece of land so you can just, I don't know, have to enjoy it and do whatever you
Can I
want
also
with
ask?
it. Yeah.
Can I ask why is it always land when I discuss this with socialists? It's like land. Even now, land is essentially me. It's not. If you want to get rich, it's not super useful. It's like if poor people need some sort of property rights to land so they can work it and slowly like climb some sort of ladder, then land is great. But if you want to make money, like you go to the city, you work in finance, you own no land, and you make a ton of money.
Well, the reason I use land is it's easy to visualize. It's not as abstract to say like, you know, other
But
forms
it's
of
not like the
property.
best way to make money. It's like a pretty poor way of making money.
Well, I mean, it may be a good way or a bad way to make money. It's just like I don't have it. I'm saying, me personally, of course, but we always bring it down to the level of the individual again. What is your opinion? What is your stance? And then people try to argue off of that, like they're going after not going after, but they're like, trying to like, have a discussion with the interlocutor of the discussion, and then try to like, go from there.
So
Um,
the hypothetical.
yeah, yeah, of course. I'm just saying, like, I'm just saying personally, I'm the problem property rights. I'm just saying, society, it really is like a give and take. It really is. You want us to respect, recognize yours, then we like a little bit of reciprocation in return. Fine, but if someone's gonna be a hard ass, hard nosed, person about it, then I'm gonna take a hard line stance. Because if they're gonna do it, then I'm gonna do it. Because if they want to act like they're being totally aggrieved just by paying taxes on income, you know, of something that's provided by the fucking government allows them to do
Oh,
it in the
okay.
first place, and
Let's.
they choose to do it, and it's really goof. That's not a violation of property rights. It really isn't. It's not.
You've been
But I
traumatized by Zulu, haven't you?
who?
He's gotten in your head, man. He's living rent free. You have to evict
No,
him, yo.
actually, he's not. He's not the. Here's the thing. He's not the first person to like talk like those kind of ideas to me. It's just been a really long while since I come across somebody like as adamant as him, and I give it to him. He is creative and adept, and he comes up with them, scenarios and such. I give that to him, and he seems to be well committed to his ideas. And even if he's doing it just for humiliation purposes, like fucking the other guy, Big Papa Fascist, or whoever that I seen them talk
Oh,
to,
I'm on his Discord.
Brittany, yeah, yeah, Brittany 2.0, and it's kind of like that's his thing, and that's understandable. I get it. You want to make an interesting fucking discussion. These are like, but then again, if they're gonna take hardline positions and skirt past obviously what I'm talking about, I'm feeling I'm gonna do the same thing too. If see, you seem to understand, like, at least where I'm coming from. You may not agree with it. Fine, I understand. No one's going to agree, 100%. At least not with each other. It's very unlikely. Um,
Well,
but
I just like to talk about
at least,
ideas.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Then that's what we're doing, and that's fine. But I think Zulu was just, I think, oh, what? Oh God, I don't want to talk about people that are out here. I just want to do it. But I said other people. I say other people when they try to, when those other people try to like constantly get me with them gotchas, these hardcore hardline stance like you're evil because you want to do a social safety net program. I'm like, if the rest of society has no problem with it, and this is a program and an idea that reduces misery, increases overall liberty and economic mobility and freedom, and
Mhm.
society's like, and by and large says, okay, this is okay. I think we should do this by and large. Then I'm like, we're all as a society are consenting, but the problem is people that are on the ultra far and camp right want to build a worldview where public property, public consent just isn't a thing because it conflicts or it goes against like their most basic framework as just not being the thing. It's just being invalid or illegitimate. And because of that's not really something to argue from. It was is a real convenient rhetorical sort of way of going about it, and I see that as like just a really cheesy cop. They want to accuse me of missing the point. I can say likewise, and it's like society's not perfect. I'm not a not a utopian. I don't think sometimes the force needs to be applied against someone who's unconsenting because that person they fucked up and they ended up hurting somebody in some way physically, mentally, physically primarily or monetarily. And next thing you know, that person's like, I don't care what I did. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck. I don't consent to this. I don't consent. And that person has to be literally dragged off to be held accountable for their actions. And sometimes,
Relocation, yeah.
yeah. So it's like there's people want to like live in society, take advantage of the benefits of society, but they sure as hell when it comes like, can you kick a little bit in because we kicked in a little bit for you, and no one made you come here, no one made you stay here. You're here because you want to be here, because do that, and then they go, fuck you, that's communism, that's statism, fuck you, and it's like to me that seems really short-sighted. I'll say that.
Okay.
I don't know. It's just
Look, so I'll say this. So to some degree, what you're describing is that the rules in society that brought us here are pragmatic, like they work for most people. I'm assuming that's what you were saying. And here, someone coming in from what you would call the extreme and is questioning how you arrived at those conclusions. Now, to some degree, you need to give a good answer because you can't just say, "Well, we put everything in a pot and this what came out," because how do you know in a different combination of things it wouldn't been better, or what is, or you're affecting people's lives in a relatively significant way. So what are the reasoning behind that? And it's fine to ask at least what are the reasoning for those things.
oh yeah.
But again, bear in mind that n- from the other side of your interlocutor, there was no examples of how their system is working. None at all.
Well, I don't want
There
to.
was there was nothing to say that. So, for example, you're saying that our system works. It may not, even if you're saying our system works, but it may not be perfect, and here, and there. But for the majority, it works. They don't have anything to show their system working. So you could press on that next time and ask to give examples. But there are like, so. For example, I've researched this a bit. You have like some kind of um, anarcho-communist um, like like squatting area in Denmark that was a big deal. I believe it's Denmark. And you have technically Somalia to some degree, but not because it's an ANCAP. It's not even ANCAP. Not because, well, not because it's anarchy per se, because the government there failed, and technically the non-government or semi-government situation they have at the moment was better than the previous socialist dictatorship that they had prior. They had for like 30 years prior to that government or non-government.
Hey, I will say
So
this.
it's
Oh, go
so
ahead.
yeah, there is no economic system to compare to and say this is working. There is no economic system to even in like small areas of land to compare to and say this is working. As far as I know.
Well,
So them attacking our system is you have to give us something to work with here.
well, thing is, if they want to criticize and ask questions about it all day long, sure, and I can give the reasons that I give, and I don't think any of the reasons that I will ever give, no matter what, even if I lived to be a million and thought about this shit 24 hours a day, would ever be good enough for them. They want a system that's theirs, and if they don't get the system that's theirs because of their prescribed morality or their version of it, then they're just going to be just complete malcontents about it, which I have no problem with. If they want to be malcontent and they want to be just absolutely just the position where they're at, fine. Yeah, I'm glad we have people like that in society, honestly, people like him and yourself and others who are constantly showing us that people can have these discussions in a relatively free society like we are. Maybe it's not free as what they wanted, but we're definitely free to have these discussions and not get thrown in fucking jail. Um, is
Mhm.
that I mean, is that I mean, is I mean, I think that's definitely a positive or plus. Is it perfect? No, and it was all about working towards that more um, when I say more perfect union is that's that corny phrase, but it's the
Mhm.
best. I mean, for lack of a better phrase, I think that's what I'm getting towards. But yeah, I
So
mean, yeah.
do you need the other side to agree with your position, or are you happy just to say we can't agree, but that's okay?
If it comes to that, then fair enough.
So to some degree, I would say just in these debates that there are cases where the other side is immovable on their position, and I would say in which case then you can continue talking to the audience and persuading. And I, for example, will continue pushing my ideas because I think they are good ideas and I think it's beneficial for society. And if you're getting in a situation with your interlocutor, I would suggest something similar. Now, with I can also suggest a compromise,
Hmm.
which is with ANCAPs, which is there are countries, I believe, in Latin America or some islands in that area. I'm not exactly sure, but I believe it's Latin America, where they're saying someone can buy like an area of land in that country and say that area of land and say that the government agrees to not intervene in that area of land. So it's designed specifically
Uh,
for people to come in and start building it with the notion that the government will just agree. Sorry, oh, I think
uh,
there is a requirement where they say you have to show a constitution like half a year in or a year in into what you want, but they're not gonna intervene in what you do there per
okay.
se.
Well, I have a better idea. Well, I'm sorry. Not a possible different idea. It might be like there's a large island. It's not far off from the sea or anything like that. It's not in the middle of nowhere, or maybe just a large piece of inland. It could be recognized by the government. The people don't have to buy it. Like it's just available for the taking, right? And
Mhm.
people come and they say just simply they don't got to buy it. They just simply stake their claim, and that piece of the land is theirs. And they can do it that way to where they don't have to buy it. To where they have to claim it because buying land indicates that you're buying it from somebody. So that person who originally owned it before, if they were a state, and if an anarcho-capitalist says they don't want to, you know, they don't say that the state or government or public anything is a thing, then them kind of buying land from that government is kind of legitimizing them, even though on principle they'd say it's not a thing. So I figure if they start off like that, because it'd be a really interesting experiment. Like they tried doing this a few years back with Have you heard about the article named cleverly named Atlas Mugged?
I can't say that I have, no.
Well, basically, I forget where it happened, but I think it was somewhere in South America. I think it was where these libertarian types they tried to buy some land to start their own libertarian utopia thing,
Mhm.
and and let's just say the shit went sideways and the people got snookered, and the next thing those same libertarians went to court to fight it. And I thought, and of course, a lot of people all over, not just on the far left, had a had a kind of a chuckle at it. Um, it's like, oh my God, these guys running the government, the thing that they hate, but I don't know. Just that might be an unfair way of looking at it. But I mean, yeah, it'd be a real interesting idea to see if something like that could really grow and spread. Because if let's say if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm willing to accept that. I'm not trying to be a hard ass socialist lefty just to be a fucking lefty. I'm like, hey, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, because I try to base my ideas and opinions of real world empirical living examples of what we could be doing, what we could be
Hmm.
looking into. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I mean, maybe it's Ancapistania is the way, and but the thing is, I'm not gonna be terribly convinced by a bunch of maybes and what ifs and straight up theory if there are few of any examples, real examples, because many anarcho-capitalists they'll be like, well, that wasn't that wasn't true anarcho-capitalism. That wasn't true capitalism. If
Well,
because for
that
free,
could be
yeah,
anything.
like, you're right. So I mean, somebody will always say that. It's like people on the left. Oh, that wasn't true communism. That wasn't true
Yeah,
socialism.
I hear
But no
that a
truth,
lot.
no truth. No, oh, it's when lefties use it, they're being jackasses. But people on the capitalist right, when they're saying, oh, they really mean it, and they're smart. Um, but it's like, yeah, it'd be an interesting thing to look at. I mean, I think if people want to do that, they should be free to do it. But I think as far as the society goes, as far as at least the United States and maybe many of the European countries, people are relatively pretty free. But some people would consider even 1% infringement on what they perceive to be their rights and liberties to be like 100% oppression. And to me, that is definitely uh, an absolutist position. And like, and I have to ask the question: is like, if you feel that fucking bad, I mean, not trying to be an asshole, but you feel that bad. I mean, there are many places in the world where you can go and start your own commune, and they're like, no, 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 why do I gotta move? Why do I gotta move? Like, well, no one's forcing you to stay here. You want society to bend around you totally, give us what you want straight up, and your buddies, and you're telling everyone else who want different to fuck off, which kind of keeps going back to the thing that I do, and it's like if it all comes down to choice and consent, why are you choosing to fucking stay here? And then they'll ask again, like it's a fucking loop, you know?
Yeah, I mean, to some degree, like there is. So okay, so the reason why I looked into ANCAP stuff is because it had some interesting theories, and I liked to learn new things, and it had some interesting approaches. I have reviewed it to some degree, and it's not something I would necessarily like to pursue. But with regards to your specific point, so they are saying that the rights are violated while being in the country. So you're saying why can't you leave? And there is an entire like list of reasons, which I would perhaps maybe agree with some of them. Why it's still, even though I'm staying, or I don't have too many other options, or I don't have many other places to go to. And even, for example, I'll give a ANCAP slash libertarian example. If you try to seastead, which is to go to have like a floating area of something, and you say, this is where I'm living, I'm not paying any taxes, I'm not doing anything, like, and then you go a bit offshore. Even then, like, the government will come and raid. I'm saying a real example. The government will come and raid you and ask your finance and everything. So with regards to taxes, it's surprisingly um, savage in hunting you down. I'm not going to speak to like guns and stuff like that, or 3D printing of guns, which I know is some. Well, I'm perhaps exaggerating, but guns in the ANCAP world is and libertarian world is a very important issue. Um, and there have been like places where the government came in and said, and like was extremely aggressive. I think you may have heard some examples. Extremely aggressive, killed everyone, and it was extremely unfair. And obviously, if you hang around libertarian or ANCAP forums enough, you'll see like abuses from police and stuff like that, or that
Yeah,
violate like constitutional rights. So I understand that, and even to some degree, like it's a critique on my own system. Like, how would I? root out police corruption? How would I make sure the police enforce laws? And there are some people now that can give like some good things that can fix the American police currently, and they would be from the libertarian side. So it's good to hear these opinions, these critiques, because it can just improve
Yeah,
yourself.
can.
Um, but yeah,
And
from a point of view of discussing ideas, I think it's fine.
oh, absolutely. I mean, this is the beauty of it. I mean, I'm grateful, really. Even if I go on to another stream with another hardcore anarcho-capitalist and I get totally just steamrolled, I'm like, okay, fine. I mean, well, I wasn't obviously wasn't prepared, and it's a personal responsibility issue. um, but you had to have these discussions because a lot of these guys are really super duper deep into the wormhole, like the black hole of philosophy and shit. And it's like, yeah, it's like good luck trying to pull yourself out of that unless you got some fucking breakaway maneuver. Um, like I think of all these discussions as like puzzles to figure out because that's what my mind tries to do: is figure out these little puzzles and see what solutions are possible. Um, but like I tell like anyone who's like got this idealistic system or somewhat idealistic, like I'm not perfect. I admit it. I got flaws and I'm guilty of making mistakes and all that, and guilty of supporting an imperfect system that seems to be overall working pretty well, even though we have the problems of police brutality, which people on the left, like myself, are trying to address to maybe reorganize policing into community policing that seems to be working pretty well, to demilitarize the police to where it's
Mm.
less of a
I can read
jack.
out. I can read
Sorry,
out the things that they want to fix, or maybe you can tell me because it's American and I'm not entirely sure. But I think their argument would be
fuck the
uh,
police and underground.
so end the war on drugs,
Yes,
um, remove mandatory minimum sentencing, pardon existing prisoners for light drug offenses,
yes.
consider enforcing. Wait, what am I reading? Hold on. I'm not sure if I'm reading the right
You're
one.
reading the Communist Manifesto.
No, 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 no. Oh, sorry. Increase, sorry, I'm different topic. Increase police accountability. That's the overall theme. Remove
Yes.
qualified immunity, break up police unions, end no-knock warrants, end civil forfeiture. And I
Yep.
suppose the drugs is also a big element of that.
Yeah, well, at least release people who have been arrested for minor possession, non-violent, at least,
Hmm.
and even some
Well,
violent, because
on principle, it's a victimless crime.
technically it is. But at the same time, drug awareness I think is a big thing that needs to be addressed. And people like even though Dare drug awareness resistance education, like back in the '90s, that was kind of corny, but it really did help a lot of kids in school, understand what drugs were about and that they're kind of dangerous as far as like you don't just willy nilly do them because the other's doing it, and it really probably at least helped me not to potentially fall into that trap. But it's like especially when you hear stories of the tossed salad man in prison. That'll get it.
Is that a
That'll get.
Chappelle joke?
No, I think that's a Chris Tucker joke. I think
Chris Tucker. Okay,
no,
sorry.
not Chris, not Chris Tucker. Fucking Chris Rock.
Chris Rock. Okay.
He, yeah, he the tossed salad man. Just look up Chris Rock tossed salad man on YouTube.
No,
It
I
was
think I've
funny
heard that
shit.
from somewhere. Yeah, it's a really old.
Oh yeah, I'm all the classics, baby. I got all the classics. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, from the '20s too. But yeah, as they talk about that, it's like yeah, it's a way to scare kids straight, and a lot of kids did get scared straight into doing things in their personal lives. At least let them know what they're probably going to get into. So like a strong awareness program, like rehab, of course. That's those sorts of programs which help to get people back to more balanced and productive lives. I firmly believe, based on what I've seen, that most people want to be productive in some way. Most people don't just want to sit home and just do nothing all day long and just have a morphine drip and get government cheese and do jack shit. People want to be productive. Like even even super rich people, right, who can just sit on their asses all day, they want to do something because they want to live life. They want to do something. They want to contribute something meaningful to
Mm.
society, to humanity. So I think like when people like on the camp right have this really grim sort of view on, oh well, if you're just giving free money, they're not going to work. When in fact, basic income through many test pilots have been shown to actually increase productivity, increase educational outcomes, improve health outcomes, and all kinds of positive externalities and effects that seem to work pretty well. I mean, so it's things that go kind of counterintuitive to what is usually said by a lot of those on the economic right, more or less, even some centrists too. Um, it's just that I like to challenge those kind of common sort of notions as well, to see how can we make the freest possible liberty maximizing society that is realistically able to work as best as possible. Will it ever be perfect? But no, but hopefully we can. I'm more of the liberty left or democratic socialist liberty left, as strange as that might sound. That's kind of
Libertarian
like,
socialist, yeah.
well, I don't want to say that because as soon as you say that, people's heads explode. you know, but
So
understandably, yeah.
I would say like I'm not entirely sure that I've seen basic incomes to in terms of productivity and stuff like that. I don't know specifically to which you mean. I mean, to some degree, we've seen like an experiment with basic income during the lockdowns,
Well, those were
and we had examples where people didn't go back to work. I mean, look, so let me take a step back. I too think that people want to work, that people want to be productive. I think it's a very meaningful and purposeful experience for them. It's also like a social circle to a lot of people as well. So I don't think that people want to stay at home in if they can avoid it. I do think though that some welfare system kind of trap you in some sort of situation where it's more beneficial to stay on in the system than it is to find a job and leave the system. It's something that you can read about. It's just called basically welfare traps and a variety of different things.
right.
For example, if just an example, if there was a job right now, there's like 10.9 million jobs in the US. If you are receiving some sort of welfare, some sort of benefit in your local area, but there is a really good job that's out of state in another part of America, and it's a good opportunity for you. It's can help your literally help your career advance. But if you leave your state, there's no guarantee that when you arrive to the other state, you'll receive the benefits that you're receiving in your state. So you think maybe I should just stay here because I'm already registered, and it took me a year to get on these benefits. I don't want to lose that. So that's for example something that I would be against. But again, I have like a different system of helping people than it is through the government in general. I would say also I would say, but I can for the sake of this argument give you a compromise, a theoretical scenario, and tell me if you would agree to it or not. Okay?
Hmm, sure.
So I would agree, and I think this could be the last thing we can discuss. I would agree for the sake of this hypothetical that I would agree to a UBI, yeah, $1,000 a month, okay, man, woman, and child from a particular age, no means testing, okay, but you have to cut 90% of the government to do that. All the stuff that 90% of the government did is now in the free market. People want any service that they receive free from the government, they can take that. They can either work or they can take the $1,000 a month and buy something with it. Healthcare, food, all that kind, or education, all that stuff is now in the free market in order to pay for the UBI. Would you agree? A
To
thousand dollars a month, no means tested.
Well, there's a little bit of a snag with that. I've found out, and I can give you some information on this here whenever we're done with this stream. That what we're doing now, letting poverty exist the way it does, is ending up costing our economy much more than the net transfer cost of a basic income. The net transfer cost is estimated to be around 700, 800 billion a year. Poverty existing the way it does costs our economy at least $2.4 trillion a year. So I figure we're doing
Yeah,
more
I don't
expensive.
know about that. That's
Okay,
a
well,
stretch.
not many people do, and it's really is it's sad that not a lot of people just aren't aware of it. But I'll give you the info when
Okay.
we're done talking. But like I said, in the end, if you just still disagree, so basically the way I look at it, we're doing the more expensive, less effective thing right now, even on top of current social programs,
Well,
and we're
either
saying,
way, I'm
yeah,
giving
but
you $1,000 a month.
yes,
If
but
someone if someone is poor, they are getting a basic income, a
the
UBI of $1,000 a month.
the only way I would be okay with that is like we still kept, Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security,
You're
and
getting
maybe
it's a
and
big
maybe 1500 bucks a month. Then that I would probably do because you don't want to leave people worse off overall because you don't want to shift like this group of people now worse off. No, so you shift that to another group of people like en masse and like it just to me it seems to be kind of like reshuffling what it's kind of unnecessary. Like I mean, if I really showed you like we really are doing the more expensive thing right now, letting poverty exist the way it does, even with current programs existing the way it is, and with welfare trap programs, which I agree, welfare traps are shitty. They're bureaucratic, and quite frankly, they are counterproductive to what they're supposed to what their supposed aim is. I mean I understand that, but if I can show you that, at least we can do a UBI, and they would end up saving us money, and like, it's a bit of a thing though, kind of not convoluted, but it's kind of like
Okay,
a bit of,
let me add something. Let me add something to the
but
pot here, okay?
you're not far off. I'll say that.
Let me add something to the pot, yeah? Let's
Mm,
say let's say that if something goes into the free market, yeah, the price of it will go down over time. Or in another way, to say it in economics, markets are deflationary. So if a company becomes more productive over time, it's able to produce more products. Producing more products means they will cost less, and people will have more access to those things. Similar with technology, if you add technology to some kind of process, you can produce less, or you can scale up more, can reach more people for less money. Let's take an example of Blockbuster and Netflix in terms of the technology effect. And people, once it's in the free market, it will cost less money. There's really endless amount of research and graphs and to prove this. But for argument's sake, let's assume that markets are deflationary and the people get UBI, they get $1,000 a month. And once stuff is in the private sector, healthcare goes down. Yeah, I can give you examples right now. There's like a place where you can buy pills for cheap that Mark Cuban released recently, which is really good. All these things, like the prices start coming down, and you still have $1,000 a month per person, like clean. So let's, for argument's sake, imagine that if someone needed 1,200, 1,500, let's say if they wait a bit, cost of living will go down, hopefully, for them, depending if they're living in the city or outside the city, and they have, or they can take the $1,000 and move to the middle of nowhere where the cost of living is dirt cheap, and still do a bit of work on the side, but live a comfortable life. Not they can afford certainly everything they need from the CPI basket and food and everything. Would you agree to my offer? I think you're coming towards my way here. You're
Well, I mean, I'm not.
leaning towards my option here.
Well, I mean, I'm not a total hard ass. I think, like, as far as like markets being deflationary, I don't know that. I mean, I don't know about how that would work, so I'll just assume that it is. But as far as the other ideas, I mean, it definitely is. Like, me, I try to look at like what we're doing now versus what we could be doing, and I'm not trying to spend a cajillion dollars just to do it. I'm trying to figure out a way to where these ideas get, if they get implemented, they're actually implemented in a fiscally sensible, reasonable way. Um, but like far with like healthcare and like UB poverty existing, like those things switch over to a better system. Like then we can definitely do that and save money compared to what we're doing now if we wanted to. And we can try to implement some of the other ideas because like let's say like we had a plain society, right? Like it's just gonna start off, then we simply just do like other countries provided the healthcare system and UBI and Social Security. What else?
Hmm.
Higher education, and left the markets to be, as minimally regulated as possible. I think that could be a system a lot of people in the libertarian right could really be more supportive. Because I understand, like, people hate regulation, people hate being told what to do, but it's just, for me, it really is like this is not going to be a good answer. Probably not. It's just lesser of two shitty situations. And for me, overall, historically, this kind of systems of we have here in the developed world tend to work overall pretty decently. And like, some of your ideas, like, because you rattle off quite a few, and um, they're definitely like things to consider, and they are interesting. But yeah, I think there can be some progress to be made overall, unless somebody is an absolute hard line, like anarcho-capitarian, like, for real.
Well, I'm
Which
compromising
is
with you.
okay. I know you're not that you're trying to. Um,
Can I get a
and
soft? Can I get a yes between a yes and a maybe, or a full yes to my hypothetical here, from your opinion?
what are the main things
So the
that you would
government
do?
has to be cut down by 90% just to pay for the UBI, but as a result, and everything goes to the free market. But as a result, um, man, woman, and child, no means test, child from a particular age, no means tested, $1,000 a month. So
Um, you're
329 million people, 329 million people get $1,000 a month, uh, and to pay for it, you just cut down the government. Like you don't change any
like,
taxes, same as before.
okay, so you just cut down the government spending, like, on social programs. I mean,
Well, a lot of stuff, but it's not that these functions will stop existing. They'll just be in the market, and you can use that money from the UBI to pay for them. I'm arguing also that once it's in the market, the price will go down because the market is the way it is.
as far as prices go down, that's maybe,
Well,
I don't know.
I'll let you research that because it's a fairly easy to research point. But for argument's sake, and let's say if they have any more, if they have really really bad needs, then charities, non-profits, social entrepreneurs, volunteers, food banks, all that kind of stuff. If they need help beyond the $1,000, but apart from that, like, but let's look at it from another point of view. Even with taxes and stuff exist, leaving taxes the way they are, because there's a lot less regulations, businesses can do more, they can be more productive, you can produce more stuff. More stuff means the prices go down, more jobs, and so for argument's sake, apart from prices going down, the economy will grow because just from less regulations, just from that.
I mean, could it grow? I mean, I really don't know. But let's say your things work out the way you do. I would only agree to, like, or be open to your idea
What's your
if we
condition? Huh? What is it?
if we did do provided Social Security and healthcare, then I think
This is more
yes.
than
Then I
social
think,
security. This is more, literally a lot more money than social security.
well, the thing is, if you cut off Social Security to elderly, particularly, yeah, people get
No,
$1,000
but this
checks, but
this is literally more money than social security would have given them.
well, for a lot of people, no. A lot of people get paid $2,000 to $3,000 a month, and they work, their entire lives for that shit, and it's like be paid into a
Two,
system.
3,000 is like if you had. I'm not exactly sure. My wife did this to explain, but it's like
Okay, how about this?
a
How about
million.
this?
You have a million in your pension or something. In your social security equivalent. It's really for the high end.
I tell you what. I would do your system if you threw in universal healthcare. Then yes, I would do your stuff.
No, the healthcare needs to be cheap. You more okay. Let's do this right. The healthcare is cheap, and I'll throw in a charity for if people can't afford very very cheap healthcare. This charity will help them out.
Healthcare. I'm sorry.
So the lower end of people, if like they're hit with like a really high bill, or they have zero money and they need like $50
Health.
to pay for some pills, this charity will cover it.
Thing is, healthcare. I'm sorry, but healthcare is something, in my opinion, shouldn't be left up to charity. It's literally an investment in people, an investment in our workforce, an investment in our labor, and our economic stability. Quite frankly, um, I mean, so me,
Just give me a second. People
if
will have
it,
access to the healthcare. They'll have access to it. It will be very, very. It's like, look, let's say you have healthcare now, and I'm sure. So maybe it's something that you guys have in America that healthcare is super expensive, but let's say it's really cheap, and it's not like a pain anymore. And before the AMA got involved in healthcare, healthcare was very cheap. You would pay if you were part of
well,
like a lodge, like a lodge doctor, or like you were part of a lodge, you would pay as an employee, you would pay the equivalent of 1 or 2 days salary to have you and your family be be registered with the lodge doctor. It used to be very cheap. So
yeah,
I'm
okay.
bringing that back.
Let's say if it happens your way, where it really
Yep.
does the price, then yes, I'd be open to something like that. Yeah, definitely. But like I said, if it goes, it'll go away that you say it's
But you're
supposed
concerned
to.
about the healthcare, yeah? I have
Well,
to
that too.
prove that the healthcare.
I think healthcare is pretty important,
Okay, so I have to prove on my end.
well,
I
the
have to
thing
prove on
is,
my end that it will work, yeah?
well, I'm just saying if yours, you don't have to. It's just if it does work out like that way, yes, I think that system would be something that I don't think we can definitely
Okay, so let's
come
summarize.
together on.
Let's summarize. $1,000 a month UBI, 90% is government, and I have to give some guarantees for in the case of healthcare.
You know, that's a problem. You gotta give guarantees, and government's usually pretty decent about that. But
Well, not necessarily. They can't guarantee everything.
let's just settle on your system and fair enough. How's that going?
Oh, you like so
Okay,
you're warming up to the idea. I'll take that. I mean, I'll take it.
okay, okay. Hey, we made some progress here on the new Socialist Era show. You know, getting it done one way or another. But
Yep.
if you want to plug your projects again before we wrap up, like your Substack and all that, that will be it. And again, Zombie Hunter, I appreciate you coming back on again. And sorry about the goof up last time. And it was really good talking to you.
It was good talking to you. I don't have anything else to plug, but I enjoyed our conversation.
Me too, man. I appreciate it, and I will see you around. If you just want to hang on the Discord call, I'll just stop recording and it's done.